Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this circle. As you find a place, you take your place. You have a place in this community, a place that is uniquely yours. And as you take your place, you help us create this circle and form this spiritual community that we are together. We come here with one another. In this series, as we make our way toward the great Festival of Newness, the celebration of the Easter season, as we journey toward that festival, we are honoring 7 sacred teachings that come to us from our Aboriginal brothers and sisters. Teachings that have been passed down in the storytelling tradition. Today we honor the teachings about respect. For surely respect is at the root of all relationship. It is what makes relationship possible. And even as we come and gather in this circle, an ancient configuration in which we find ourselves and take our place, we recognize and we accept responsibility for the lack of respect with our Indigenous peoples that have created a painful and difficult history. We come here honoring this land on which we gather, the traditional lands of the Cree peoples, the Papas-Chase Nation, a land that we have responsibility with our Aboriginal brothers and sisters for under Treaty 6. And we come here in this circle in gratitude for this land, honoring the heritage, the traditions, the spirituality, and the teachings of our Aboriginal brothers and sisters. As we take our place in this community, we celebrate our sense of belonging, our sense of being spiritual community with one another, and we sing our way into this circle.
Justice and love.
Fire changed everything. We trace our universe story to the first flaring forth or the Big Bang. Fire changed everything. We all come from fire. When our species discovered the power of fire, everything changed. If humans discover the power of love, it will be the second time in our history we will have discovered the power of fire. And so we gather around this flame to learn how to live with each other, to learn how to live in this world we call home with one another and with the more than human. We gather in the power of fire to remind ourselves of what we must purify, of what we must save, of what we must allow to be consumed. We gather in this light to find our way in this day and in this time. We gather with words given to us to strengthen our intentions, words that come from Stan McKay, the first Aboriginal moderator of the United Church of Canada, words we have been offering each Sunday as we have gathered to explore 7 sacred teachings. And so with one another, we offer these words as a way of strengthening our intentions to live these sacred teachings. Together, in our many voices and in one spirit, we offer these words with each other. We come with thanksgiving for every breath, the warmth of sun and the sustaining waters, for life all around us, plants, soft grasses, and sheltering trees, for the ones that crawl, those that swim, and those that fly, for the 4-legged and the 2-legged, all our relations. We celebrate the diversity in creation as reflected in the 4 winds from the 4 directions. We especially honor the many peoples with their many gifts for understanding our shared life on the earth. We strive to live out the 7 sacred teachings: respect, love, honesty, courage, humility, wisdom, truth. These teachings enable us to live in harmony with ourselves, with our neighbors, and with all the created earth. May it be so. Amen.
This is our time for all ages, and I want to invite anyone who wants to come up here to the carpet to share some time with each other, the small, the tall, and everything in between. Come if you'd like. Good morning. I brought a few books this morning to share some pictures of some famous artworks. Sometimes. Has anyone ever seen this one before? That's a big famous one. She's called Mona Lisa. That's Leonardo da Vinci. She's very famous. People line up in the whole room to get a glimpse of her, where she's hanging in her museum. Here's another great picture. It's a bunch of sunflowers. That's by Vincent van Gogh. He painted those sunflowers, and people seem to like them, so it's great. Let's see. This book is full of... Oh, here's a fun one. This is called The Scream. Look at that person. Screaming. Look at the colors in that one. I love that. Look at the sky and the water. It's beautiful. Most people just see the scream, though, I think. Hold on. What's another one I picked? Ooh, how do you like this one? I like all the shapes. Do you see all the shapes? There's circles and squares and squiggles and lines. This is Kandinsky's. It's called Yellow, Red, Blue. I like that one, Yellow, Red, Blue. Oh, just a couple more. How about this one? Here's a painting by an artist named Frida Kahlo who did a painting of herself. She looked in the mirror and she painted what she saw. It's kind of neat. Ooh, I like this one. Jackson Pollock did some paintings like this where he took some paint and splattered it around, and look what happened. Pretty fun. It's fun to try to paint like that, too. Just take some paint and splatter it, although you need to be in a good place with some messy paint clothes on for that. So all these paintings that I've been showing you, they're all painted by people who made their life out of painting. They were artists. And there are artists that paint, there are artists that sculpt clay, there's artists that dance, there's artists that sing, there's artists that create all kinds of art. I mean, even look at the art we're celebrating over the last couple of weeks. We keep hanging these panels on our wall, and each one of these has been painted on some canvas by an artist that lives here in Edmonton. And his name is Arthur, and he painted those. And he does a beautiful job at some of those wonderful scenes that he's seen, and you can take a look all around the room for some of the ones that he's painted. Now, we often hang paintings in museums because it shows us, it shows kind of how we respect great art. We hang it. Do you have art at your house? Do you put art on your wall? Do you have it on your wall? Yeah? Is it sometimes art that you've created?
My grandfather made like a picture of Spider-Man for me.
Wow.
Because I like Spider-Man.
A Spider-Man picture. And do you have it on your wall?
No, I have it on my desk.
On your desk. Perfect. That's great. You know, those kinds of things, we show respect by choosing a very special place for them. Sometimes we have a picture that we like in our house, and maybe we put it over our bed, or we put it by our desk, or we put it over the couch, because we want to look at it all the time. So we put something special there. And sometimes they get put in museums if they're really good. I brought a frame because I want us to remember today that even the things in all these panels that hang on walls, they're all pretty fancy, and we respect those.
I have one like this.
Yeah, this is just an ordinary frame. But I want to remind you today that all of us...
But it's made of diamonds.
Whoa. All of us are pieces of art. Now, I bet you didn't think of that, but look. Whoa, look, you're in the frame. You're a piece of art. Let's see. Oh, looks pretty good. Oh, look at, beautiful, beautiful. Look at this. Oh, yes, I could see that being a beautiful piece of art. Wait, there's one more. Oh, yes, it's gorgeous. Great. I want you to remember, here comes Amber. Amber, oh, yes, look at Amber.
The hat makes a good piece.
Exactly. I want you to remember that all of you are pieces of art. You're special. Now, do you want to be hung in a museum? No, let's not do that. We won't hang you on the wall. But let's just remember that even though we're just kind of having fun with this frame, all of you are pieces of art. And that means that if we can look at each other, if we turn to each other and we saw works of art, we would think of each other in very different ways. We would have respect for each other. We would want to treat them very carefully. We would want to have them be honored, just like we honor great pieces of art by putting them on the wall. We would want to honor everyone if we can respect them. So we're going to look after each other. We're going to take care of each other because we don't want works of art to get damaged. We don't want to hurt pieces of artwork. And if you're a piece of artwork, then we don't want to damage each other. We don't want to hurt each other. We want to respect it and care for it very carefully. So, all you wonderful pieces of art, do you think we can do that? Can we care for each other, respect each other? Oh, yes, I think we can do it. And if it helps to have a frame, just get a frame and look at everyone in a frame. It'll remind you that we're all works of art. All right. Fantastic. Thank you for coming and looking at some art. And you know what? These are such fun books. I know you've got other things to do in your class today, but if you have spare time, you can always look at some fun artwork. Now's a time that you can go to your kids' fair. Our reading this morning as our first piece of wisdom comes from the Christian tradition, from the writings in the Gospel of Luke in chapter 6, starting at verse 27. Jesus said, "I say to you that listen, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who abuse you. And if anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. From anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to everyone who begs from you, and if anyone takes away your goods, do not ask for them again. Do to others as you would have them do to you." This is a teaching attributed to Jesus of Nazareth. May we find wisdom for our living.
This is a contemporary parable.
May we find wisdom.
I don't know about you, but everything I needed to learn about respect, I didn't learn in kindergarten. In fact, the most impactful teaching I've experienced about respect didn't happen for me at home, didn't happen for me at school, didn't happen for me in church. The most profound lesson I learned about respect, I learned in the courtroom. And not just any courtroom, and certainly not in every courtroom, but in one particular courtroom, where my teacher was Judge Percy Marshall. Early on, as an inexperienced prosecutor, I would breathe a sigh of relief when I saw his name at the top of the docket for the day, because I knew that my mistakes would be gently corrected and my day would be filled with courtesy and with kindness and with grace. And a few years later, when I found myself on the other side of the courtroom as defense counsel, I was again and again struck by my client's response to Judge Marshall. On those mornings when I was serving as duty counsel, I'd arrive at the remand center to begin seeing those who were scheduled for appearances on docket that day. And the first question the experienced among them would always ask was, "So, who's the judge today?" And sometimes the answer to that question had been telegraphed through the inmates so well before I had met any of them, I began to realize they were asking that question of me like most lawyers ask questions of witnesses on the witness stand. They were usually asking me a question for which they knew the answer, and I was just there to confirm the rumor. And if I told them that Judge Marshall was sitting in docket court today, several of them who were scheduled to enter a plea or set a trial date or make an application for bail, they would want to enter guilty pleas. And I tell them that Judge Marshall tended to sentence at the higher end of the scale, that perhaps they would be wise to just adjourn for a week or two or set a trial date. I'd tell them about the triable issues in their case and that they had certain defenses, and did they really want to waive their right to a trial. And I'd tell them that their chances for being released on bail conditions would actually stand a better chance with another judge. And many of them were not dissuaded. I was always surprised by the number of clients who still wanted to enter a guilty plea and be sentenced before Judge Marshall. And over the years, I began to understand why. It wasn't because they would get the most lenient sentence, because usually they wouldn't. And it wasn't because he'd overlook the aggravating factors in their case. He'd clearly point them out. And it wasn't because he wouldn't force them to face the damage they'd caused or the harm they had inflicted. He never failed to emphasize all the facts, those that were mitigating for them and those that worked against them. But despite all the possible outcomes, I came to see that my clients had seen what I'd also seen. That Judge Marshall treated everyone who appeared before him with extraordinary respect. It didn't matter whether you were a prosecutor, defense counsel, an accused, a witness, the court clerk, the janitor, a security officer. Everyone who entered his courtroom was afforded deep and genuine respect. And I came to know that though some of my clients may have received a lighter sentence from someone else, in Judge Marshall's courtroom, they would never be humiliated or berated or belittled or patronized. You wouldn't be treated as though you were nothing more than the worst thing you'd ever done. You would be told the hard truth about yourself and the painful truth about the harm that you had caused, but you would be spoken to kindly and thoughtfully and gently and respectfully. And they would leave the courtroom to serve whatever sentence they'd been given, treated as a human being who was capable of better things. And whether you left that courtroom to serve a long sentence or to put your life back together after something unthinkable had ripped it apart, or you were going home to your family after a long day's work, or you were going back to the office to face a stack of files for tomorrow before a very different judge, you left with your dignity intact. And you'd been taught what respect looks like, what it sounds like, and what it feels like. And though we never knew it, in many ways, Judge Marshall was an elder in my life who taught me the value of respect. And his example would speak loudly to me in times when I would want to humiliate a witness during cross-examination to score a point. Or I would want to treat an accused person as though he or she was the crime they were believed to have committed. And when I reflect back on the most satisfying experience and moment in my legal career, it has absolutely nothing to do with getting a good result or a result I sought or settling a case or winning a case. The most satisfying experience in more than 13 years of practicing law came when an accused person who had just been sentenced for sexually assaulting a child asked to speak to me from the prisoner's dock before he was taken from the courtroom. I had prosecuted the case and he had represented himself. I expected him to express his anger at me for all that he was about to lose. And instead, to my surprise, he thanked me for treating him with respect throughout all the proceedings. And I thanked him for respecting the word of this child and pleading guilty on the basis of her truth and ultimately sparing her from the trauma of having to testify. He had been intoxicated to the degree that he had no memory of what he had done to this child. But he came to respect her word and accept responsibility for the harm, believing that he must have done it because she said he had. We were both teachers and learners of respect that day. We'd given it, earned it, and received it. In this most disrespectful time in which we find ourselves living. In this time when civility is replaced with rude and cruel tweets and slogans of hatred and acts of violence against each other and against the more than human, against our water and our soil and our air, against the earth, our home, we are faced with relearning the value of this sacred teaching, because respect is essential for protecting us from the worst in ourselves and in each other. And respect is fundamental to any real semblance of community, to any possibility of planetary health. In the once upon a time story of the ancient world, there was an oppressed community who were united in their struggle for freedom against a common enemy. Once they were liberated from the power of a dictator, they were faced with a new reality. How to live with themselves and with each other without their shared hatred and fear of the Pharaoh. They had to adapt to a harsh environment and find a way to govern themselves and shape freedom in this place where they were now to live. We call the story the Exodus, though in a way it's its own parable of the many escapes from freedom into the chaos of taking responsibility for ourselves and finding a way to organize our life together. In this old story, they were united not by their compassion, but by their complaints. Having escaped the proverbial Egypt, not a country in the Middle East, but a word that literally means a narrow place. A place we find ourselves again and again in life, the narrow place. Having escaped the narrow place and having come into the wide and wild place of the wilderness, they complain about everything they lack. Appetizing food and clean and plentiful water, leadership and organization, lack of direction. So the moment comes in their story when that chaos needs to be managed and values have to be established and ground rules have to be created. And that's what the summit at Sinai was all about. It's not about an all-knowing, all-powerful sky god writing some rules in stone. It's about a community's discernment and consensus about what it takes to keep human life human. How to preserve goodness and protect ourselves from the worst in ourselves. Those so-called 10 Commandments are just 10 of the ways to spell that word, respect. 10 of the ingredients to keep human life human and inject some unity into community. Respect that we didn't make ourselves. Respect our interdependence. Recognize we're all kin. We are all my relations. Number 2, respect that we are subjects in relationship with other subjects. And reverence for life means that sacredness can never be reduced to an object. Rule number 3, respect what's holy. It's what makes us whole. Rule number 4, respect the need for rest. Nothing under the sun can sustain production forever. Rule number 5, respect the wisdom of the long story. The long story of the universe in which we human ones are the Johnny-come-latelys. Respect our history, our ancestry, our story. Rule number 6, respect all forms of life. The sacredness of living and dying, the web of being, the circle of life. Rule number 7, respect faithfulness. It sustains relationship. Rule number 8, respect and discern what doesn't belong to you. Rule number 9, respect truth. Number 10, respect what has been entrusted to another. Respect is what will keep us out of that narrow place. It's what will keep us free of our Egypts, the Egypts we build when we narrow our hearts and narrow our borders and narrow our beliefs and narrow our circle of care and narrow our sense of responsibility. In the first century, in teachings passed along in the Jesus tradition, respect was spelled even more simply. Do to others what you'd have them do to you. Restrain yourself from doing what you would not wish another to do to you. Give to another what you would wish to receive for yourself. Give respect. Earn respect. Receive respect. And surely respect is at least as contagious as the common cold. Isn't that the wisdom of the story of the rabbi's gift? Respect attracts. Disrespect repels, it repudiates, it rejects. Respect creates a safe place where we can meet each other in the fullness of our humanity. In that contemporary parable, when the monks began to treat themselves and to treat each other with such extraordinary respect, they created a community that drew others to them, that made others want to be part of them. The road that was paved with respect created a possibility for a healthy future in what was otherwise a dying order. Disrespect takes us captive, builds a narrow place that becomes decrepit, and respect sets us free. Today we're perched on the edge of the season our tradition has called Lent. A season that has been a time of contemplation in our tradition. I guess you could say it's our tradition's version of a vision quest. A time to consider the values we're living. A time to strengthen our spiritual practices. A time to commit ourselves to humility and truth and respect. And all the sacred teachings that will keep us free. This is a time for us to ponder. What does it mean for us in this very moment?
We have the distinct privilege to share with each other a moment every once in a while around this table. It's at this table where, in the midst of mess and muddle, we celebrate the unfolding of matter, the emergence of energy, the evolution of life that has brought each of us to this moment. It's in this ritual around this table that we can connect with the long story of life, of Earth opening up to feed us, of our gratitude for the solar energy of grain and grapes, symbols on which our life depends.
And at this table, we connect with the tradition of our spiritual ancestors, recalling how that festival of freedom, Passover, that celebration of Exodus, was revisioned and infused with new meaning by the Jesus community when they gathered in the midst of their fears amid the persecution they experienced under the Roman Empire. And we meet at this table remembering how the early community of Jesus sustained their hope and their commitment by sharing meals together, by feeding the hungry, by caring for each other, by breaking down the barriers between men and women, Jews and Gentiles, and treating each other with a newfound respect.
So let's come to this table today as an act of solidarity, as an act of subversiveness. Solidarity with all who hunger for bread, for body and for spirit, for all who thirst for the essentials of life and the freedom to be. In a subversive commitment that challenges the systems that allow hunger to be acceptable, insatiable thirst to be inevitable, and abundance to be the province of some, not all.
Together here, we share the bread of respect and a cup of freedom as a way of renewing our commitment as the human expression of Earth community, our commitments to compassion and respect, to freedom, and to possibility.
As always with this table in our midst, we come to it just as we are. We do not need to be a member of this church or any church to be welcome. You need not subscribe to any particular doctrine or creed to participate and receive in this ritual. These are the gifts of a good earth, and they're for all of us. If you hunger and thirst for more, if you hunger or thirst for a more compassionate world, then come, eat and drink, be in community. This table is for all of us. Come, receive the bread of respect and the cup of freedom. It's our deepest hope that light can grow. So as we leave this place, may the light that we spark, may the light that we nourish, may the light that we share with each other in this space grow in the places we go next. May it grow in our lives. May it grow in our relationships. May the light of respect and freedom grow in every place we may venture. As we go, the light goes with us. Go into the sacredness of the world we love.